afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Lena Tamim, and music reviews trending. Lebanon receives the first installment of $3 billion worth of French weapons provided by Saudi Arabia. Future Movement bloc leader MP Fuad Sanura expresses concern that the prolonged presidential vacuum will drag Lebanon into conflict in the region. Lebanese officials condemn the killing of 28 Ethiopian Christians in Libya by the Islamic State. Lebanon has received the first installment of $3 billion worth of French weapons provided by Saudi Arabia. The handover ceremony held at Beirut's International Airport was attended by Lebanese and French defense ministers and top army officers. The deal, first announced in 2013, aims to boost Lebanon's military as it struggles to contain a rising tide of violence linked to the civil war in neighboring Syria. French Defense Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian says the deal will include dozens of armored vehicles, 6 transport helicopters and other types of weapons. He added that the next shipment will arrive in May. The deal also includes training programs for Lebanese troops run by the French military. Lebanese Defense Minister Samir Muqbil says his country's victory against extremism is a victory to all nations threatened by it. For his part, Army Commander General Jean Ahwaji says the grant will prepare the Lebanese army and increase its strength to confront terrorism and defend Lebanon's borders. Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz has received former Prime Minister Saad Hariri, who thanked the monarch for Saudi Arabia's keenness on Lebanon's stability and security. Hariri also thanked his host for the support provided to the Lebanese army in order to face terrorism and defend Lebanon's borders. Future Movement bloc leader MP Fuad Sanura has expressed concern that the prolonged presidential vacuum will drag Lebanon into conflict in the region. Following talks with Maronite Patriarch Bashar al-Ra'i in Kirki, Sanura said the presidential vacuum is affecting the country on several levels. He told reporters talks focused on several issues, but most importantly, the presidential elections. He called for the immediate election of a new head of state. The presidential election is a matter that concerns all the Lebanese and Arab countries, Sanura noted, urging the election of a strong president. He also voiced concern over the rift between political rivals, warning it will increase tension in Lebanon. MPs failed on several occasions to elect a new head of state over a lack of quorum. Police has launched a wide-scale search operation in Lebanon's notorious Rumia prison following a weekend riot by Islamist inmates, during which they briefly held 20 guards hostage. Interior Minister Nuhad al-Mashnouk says the strike force, part of the Internal Security Forces Special Operations Command, was able to crack down on the so-called birth of a security emirate inside the prison. A few inmates were reportedly injured after prisoners set fire to some mattresses during the morning operation. Mashnouk says the current severe overcrowding of Block D has caused the riot. The minister said it was normal for something like this to happen, as Block D can house 400 inmates, while 1,100 have been squeezed in it, increasing chances of chaos and alliances between terrorist groups. Health Minister Wael Abu Faoud has referred several complaints regarding suspected medical errors to the Order of Physicians. A statement from the Health Ministry says the complaints included one against Hotel du Hospital and another against Clemenceau Medical Center after a patient's mother underwent surgery that cost $57,000. A patient complained against an ophthalmologist, alleging he suffered partial vision loss after laser eye surgery. The case of the 7-year-old boy who was mauled to death by a pit bull in the eastern city of Zahle earlier this month was also referred to the public prosecutor's office. It appears that the dog who killed Michael Kasuha was being trained for fighting. A statement released by the Health Ministry says the training of fighting dogs involves cruel practices in which animals are tortured and severely abused, and also poses great risks for citizens. Lebanon's foreign ministry has condemned the Islamic State's killing of 28 Ethiopian Christians in Libya, revealed in an online video that went viral on Sunday. In a statement, the ministry said it condemns in the strongest terms the killing of innocent Christian Ethiopians whose only sin was not to believe in the Islamic State's takfiri ideas and delusional teachings. The ministry offered its condolences to the Ethiopian people and government, expressing solidarity in light of this painful tragedy. It called for a unification of international efforts on all levels to confront ISIS and its false ideas. A video released by ISIS on Sunday appears to show the killing of 2 different groups of captured Ethiopian Christians by the extremist group's Libyan affiliates. And coming up next, Thai customs officials seize 4 tons of ivory worth $6 million. We'll be right back. Welcome back. An Egyptian court has sentenced 22 members of the Muslim Brotherhood to death over an attack on a police station in a district outside Cairo in 2013. The assault was part of a wave of violence that rocked the country after the army removed elect Islamist President Mohamed Morsi from power following mass protests against his rule in June of 2013. One other defendant, who is a juvenile, was given a 10-year sentence. A lawyer for the convicted men said they will appeal. Egyptian authorities have jailed thousands of suspected members of the Brotherhood, and the courts have sentenced hundreds to death. The government says the outlawed Brotherhood is a major security threat, but the Brotherhood says it does not condone violence. The defendants were convicted of murder, attempted murder, and the destruction of public facilities, among other charges, during an attack on the police station in Kirdassa district, in which 1 policeman was killed. Moving on to Yemen, powerful explosions have rocked the Yemeni capital, shattering windows and damaging structures. A Saudi-led airstrikes targeted suspected weapon caches and missiles held by Houthi fighters. Reports say this was by far the strongest explosion witnessed in Sana'a so far. One of the airstrikes reportedly targeted a Scud missile base held by the Shia Houthi rebels in Fagatan Mountain, beside Hada district, where the presidential palace and many embassies are located. Nearby homes were being evacuated. Australian Foreign Minister Julie Bishop says her country has brokered a deal with Iran to share intelligence on Australian citizens who are fighting with the Islamic State group in Iraq. In an interview with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, Bishop said the deal is an informal arrangement after meeting with Iranian officials during her visit to Tehran.
We have a common purpose with Iran in defeating Daesh and helping the Iraqi government. During my discussions with the national leadership here, it was agreed that we could share intelligence, particularly on the foreign terrorist fighters from Australia who are taking part in this conflict in Iraq. And so it was an informal arrangement whereby we would share intelligence that would give us information on the Australians who are taking part. And I believe that Iran has information that we would seek, and they were very agreeable to share that information with us. Iran has a long-standing relationship with Iraq, and as you point out, they have a very strong military presence there. They also have an influence over the Shia militia who are operating within Iraq, and we had a discussion about the Shia militia and their role. So they are in Iraq in places that we are not. They also have a very sophisticated intelligence network, and there is a lot of information that they've been gathering because they are determined to dismantle the Daesh infrastructure, the Daesh leadership, and they're determined to contain its territorial ambitions. Well, I'm concerned by the reports of human rights abuses by the militia. I raised these matters directly with the Iranian leadership. I wanted there to be no misunderstanding of Australia's role there, that it is limited to supporting the Iraqi government, that we are there at the invitation of the Iraqi government. We are advising any Australian not to go to Iraq, not to go to Syria. They are putting their lives at risk, and Australians will be killed if they go to Iraq and Syria by Daesh. And there are many examples, tragically, where Australians have been killed in the conflict here. So our very strong message, our strong warning to any Australian considering coming over to take part in this conflict is don't do it.
And still in the Middle East, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was given a 14-day extension to form a new government as he struggles to build a coalition after 4 weeks of intensive talks. Such a move is far from unusual in Israel, where it is almost unheard of for a single party to win an outright majority, and lengthy negotiations with multiple potential coalition partners are the norm. Following last month's general election, in which Netanyahu's right-wing Likud party won the largest number of seats, The Israeli premier was on March 25th tasked by Rivlin with forming a new government. He was given 28 days to complete the task, but with the Wednesday deadline looming and no agreement in sight, he has requested the extension early this morning, saying it was necessary to build a stable government. EU foreign ministers have gathered in Luxembourg under pressure to produce more than words as bodies were brought ashore in Malta, among hundreds feared drowned in the latest Mediterranean migrant tragedy. The death toll from Sunday's shipwreck off the coast of Libya was uncertain after officials said there had been at least 700 people on board, some reportedly locked in the hold. Members of the media, medical workers and volunteer helpers gathered in the Sicilian port of Catania, preparing for the arrival of 28 survivors.
Well, this was the latest tragedy, yes, it's true. We think that about 700 migrants have died. We still don't know how many people were on board. Survivors apparently told the police that there were 950, but we still have to check out this information because maybe there were too many. Usually this wooden fishing boat, they can carry about 600, 700 migrants. It's a tragedy. Last weekend 400 people, now 700 people. Since January, 1,600 people lost their lives in the Mediterranean. Last year, in the same period, since January from April, 96 people died at sea. So 15 times more this year. It's a tragedy. I think that in this moment the life-saving mechanism in the Mediterranean are not enough. The Italian Coast Guard is carrying out an exceptional work, heroic work, but in the moment in the Mediterranean there are not the same means which were used last year by Mare Nostrum. So it is urgent that the life mechanism similar to Mare Nostrum should be put in place as soon as possible.
And moving on to Asia, Thai customs officials have seized 4 tons of ivory worth $6 million in what authorities say is the largest bust of its kind in Thailand's history. The elephant tusks were hidden in bags containing dried beans in containers originating from the Democratic Republic of Congo and were bound for Laos. The seizure comes as Thailand, a top destination for African ivory smuggling in Asia, is under increasing pressure to regulate its illegal ivory trade. Moving on to the U.S., U.S. President Barack Obama and his family went hiking in Great Falls Park in Virginia, taking advantage of the warm spring day. Obama and his daughters, Malia and Sasha, accompanied by security entourage, trekked in the park and spent about 45 minutes on the trail. A few other families were also in the park, taking advantage of the free entry weekend. The early evening timing worked out fairly well for the first family, as it started raining shortly after they left. Actor Ben Affleck requested that the PBS documentary series Finding Your Roots not reveal he had a slave-owning ancestor, according to emails published online by whistleblower site WikiLeaks, and the information never appeared on the program. PBS and Harvard scholar Henry Louis Gates, host of the show that traces the ancestry of well-known guests, said in separate statements that they didn't censor the slave owner details. Instead, they said more interesting ancestors of the actor emerged, and Gates chose to highlight them in October's segment featuring Affleck. Affleck's representative did not immediately respond to an email request for comment. The award-winning actor and filmmaker has also organized humanitarian work in Africa. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. Lebanon receives the first installment of $3 billion worth of French weapons provided by Saudi Arabia. Future Movement bloc leader MP Fouad Sannoura expresses concern that the prolonged presidential vacuum will drag Lebanon into conflict in the region. And Lebanese officials condemn the killing of 28 Ethiopian Christians in Libya by the Islamic State. Those are today's headlines from us here at Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, wishing you all a very nice evening.